Okay, here's another quick video on some of the progress I want to try to work on tonight on the truck project. Once again, it's a VG30DE dual overhead cam V6 engine into a 1990 hardbody. Tonight, my goal is to sort out some of the wiring. Now the truck runs and drives, I need to sort out the wiring a little better. The truck's wiring system is still separate from the engine's wiring system. As you can see right here, I built a little bus bar, and this is the power basically going to the 300ZX wiring harness, and this is the power going to the truck wiring harness. It's all fairly simple. But now I'd like to get to the point where I can actually get the truck to start, run, accessories powered, etc. from the keyed ignition. And I'd like to figure out a few electrical gremlins I have going on. One thing I'd like to get a chance to say, hopefully I'll save somebody else the nightmare of dealing with this. When I first got the truck running, it was running on just a couple cylinders, running really rough and awful, and I could not figure what was going on. And I was swapping out the ECUs back and forth, and I was testing the pins on the wiring harness, and it was an absolute pain. And then I found a post online after doing enough searching with somebody mentioning having an issue with a loose connector on their ECU. Well, I'd just been jamming in the connector into the ECU between tests and, finger tightening the screw and thinking that was good enough, and that was actually the problem. It needs to be fully seated and fully tightened down decently to make proper contacts. That solved some problems. For some reason, I wasn't getting power running to all the in 12-volt powers that I was supposed to. So enough time looking at a wiring harness, I was able to tap in those powers where they were supposed to be. Now what's happening right now is my relays aren't getting their, I'm guessing pretty much it's probably transistors in the ECU that send a ground signal to the relays to switch on and off. This is for the starter, got another one for the fan. And I'm not getting those ground signals. And right now my thought is I need to check all the grounds going to the different pins to the ECU. So, pin 116, pin 10, pin 20, I think pin 60. There's a bunch of them that I want to find out and see if we're getting a proper ground to. On these fuel-injected modern cars, the ground is extremely important. And when I ran my negative grounding system, which I can actually show some points. I just used welding cable, and the engine is grounded to the frame, and the frame is grounded, or this part's grounded down to the body, and the body down to the frame, and the frame to the starter. And as far as even, let's see, there's a good view. This is coming from the battery. This is going to the transmission, and I don't know where this other guy's going. It was a while since I did it, but it's a bunch of grounds all over the place, trying to keep the system working good. So I'm going to check that. I would like to, at some point, when I figure out where I'm going to put my fuse box, ECU, etc., I'll probably open up all these harnesses again and cut them down to the length they need to be. What I've done so far is I replaced the engine wiring harness with one in much better shape and meant for a manual transmission. I don't know if the actual engine wiring harness is different. I have a thought that it is. I know the automatic will work in a manual, but I was in a hurry. I was at a friend's house in LA when I bought the donor vehicle, so I just cut off the front of the vehicle, tore out the engine, and then the wiring harness I ended up cutting. So that stayed intact, though I ended up having missed the knock sensor wiring harness, which is surprisingly difficult to get a hold of a knock sensor wiring harness, sub-harness. I believe I swapped out my tranny harness to one for a manual transmission. And then the engine control room harness, I actually cut open, separated all the wires, laid them out on the floor of the shop, and spent a couple nights just tracing which each wire went to, and I deleted anything that would not be necessary. Lights, horn, stuff like that. It's pretty simple. You could just trace the wire, hack it out, and that took out about 40% of the harness. I left a few things I wasn't sure about, like theft control modules and stuff like that. I don't plan on running them, but I didn't feel like I had a strong enough understanding of exactly how the starting system worked. It started up no problem, and it was a cinch, except for not getting the proper grounding signal from the ECU for that. So I just have a jumper wire right now to the ground wire on the relay to trigger starting, and I'll have to hook that up to the ignition. Let's see what else. After my last video, I cut out the old shifter and put in a new one. Let me see if I can put it forward. That's just the little gaff tape on there to hold the pin in because I was exhausted last time. But I put a few bends. It's a little bit lower so it doesn't strike the seat. And I put another bend here to get a little closer to the driver. And I put a little lemon grenade I had hanging around. Another issue I ran into is, you see my brake pedal here, it's sticking because I moved, as I think I spoke about in the last video, I moved the pivot pin higher to get more leverage for the manual brakes, and it's striking on the top of that master cylinder. So I need to move the master cylinder up. That's my first initial thought of how to try to fix that. I want to see if I can move the master cylinder up a ½ inch or so. It should take care of it. I've got these little compression couplers. I saw some videos of people talking about using those to repair lines. I couldn't really find any information on how safe they are. Of course, they're not as safe as having an intact, nice, perfect line, but hopefully those are good enough. I'm going to do more research before I take this thing on the street, just because I don't want to risk anything to do with the brakes. I don't care if it breaks down, strands me somewhere, as much as I don't want to, careen out of control and squish a bunch of people. So I think that's about it for now. So I'm just going to do a bunch of fault testing on this wiring, and now the wiring system's actually kind of pulled out so you can see what's going on. This is the engine wiring harness right here, and I think this is the body harness. That's where it connects into the engine room harness, and here's the engine room harness as well, which will definitely get cut down quite a bit. I probably need, I don't know, half those wires, if that, at least in length. So I can shorten a lot of stuff, and then I still have some of the wiring for the police siren and amplifier and all that crap from the truck. And you can see even more here. Like, I had a bunch of wiring for additional accessories I had in the truck previously. Some of them were kind of janky. So hopefully I'll get a chance to do those better, and probably run a constant duty relay or two to provide like a switched power for some of that stuff. So I guess that's it for now. I'll work on that stuff, and hopefully sometime next week I'll post another video, and hopefully I've made some progress by then. So thank you.